In 1969, the Ohio State football program was considered the nation's best. They hadn't lost a game in 2 years and were marching toward a second straight national title. Leading up to the game, the Buckeyes had destroyed 8 straight opponents. Their lowest margin of victory in 1969 was 27 points. Since the opening game of the season, they had been ranked #1 in the country in all of the polls. The names of Rex Kern, Jim Otis, and Jack Tatum were being bandied about as the leaders of the best college football team ever assembled. When the vaunted Buckeyes invaded Ann Arbor on a cold Saturday in November to play Michigan, it was expected to be a rout.
The one question that keeps coming up where Woody Hayes' name is involved, they say you're a man of no mercy. And yet...
You know, frankly, I don't care much what they think. I know this, and I'll put it very frankly as I can make it, that we would like to be the best team in this nation. There's been talk about ours being the best team of the century, and I'm not going to hold our kids back. I will not do it to hold down a couple of touchdowns if that's what it takes by the margin of victory to show us to be truly outstanding. I will not vote against my kids, and yet we've been playing them about half the ball game the last 2 games. So if people want to feel that way, that's usually bitterness and pettiness that I don't have any time for.
Woody, the best of luck to you. I know you and your Ohio State Buckeyes would like nothing better to set a new all-time consecutive victory mark in the Big Ten of 18 victories, especially over Michigan.
We'd certainly like to. We'd like to, Bill. Thank you very much.
The Wolverines were a team that had lost 2 of their first 5. They had been blown out 40-17 in their own stadium by Missouri earlier in the year. Despite the rocky start, Michigan won their last 4 heading into the Ohio State battle. But as the showdown approached, this was still a team in transition. The Wolverines were led by a rookie coach named Schembechler, who played for and coached for the Ohio State legend Woody Hayes. Nobody gave Schembechler, the student, much of a chance against Woody, the teacher. After all, the Buckeyes were awesome.
That team probably was the greatest football team that Woody ever had. It had no weakness. We were blowing out every team we played by 5, 6, 7, 8 touchdowns. We were an explosive, excellent football team. We knew we had a great chance to win. I honestly felt going into that game, we beat them.
In the first quarter, Ohio State established control with a TD drive on their opening possession. Jim Otis scored, and the Bucks led 6-0. Michigan answered right back with a drive of their own, and Garvey Craw capped it off, going over from the 3. And with the extra point, Michigan led 7-6. But Ohio State came back on their next possession. They marched 74 yards and took the lead back on this Rex Kern to Jan White TD pass. Again, the extra point was missed, but the Buckeyes had established a 12-7 lead. The Michigan offense then got back in gear. And thanks to Billy Taylor's 28-yard twisting and turning draw play, the Wolverines were knocking on the door once again. Craw dove over from the 1-yard line, and with the game still in the second quarter, Michigan was ahead 14-12. Then came a big moment in this one. Forced to punt, Ohio State's Mike Sensabaugh kicked deep to the Wolverines' Barry Pearson, and the St. Ignace, Michigan native started having the game of his life. Remember that name, Paul?
Pearson who?
You'll remember. He returned the punt 60 yards to the Ohio State 3. Quarterback Don Moorhead scored 2 plays later, and Michigan, the underdog, had forged ahead 21-12. Before the half ended, Tim Killian added a Michigan field goal, and after 30 minutes, Michigan was the surprise 24-12 leader. In the second half, the defenses took over, and Michigan's secondary played inspired football. Forcing Ohio State to pass, the Wolverines picked off 6 Buckeye passes. Pearson had 3 by himself. 4 of those interceptions were thrown by All-American Rex Kern.
On the Michigan 21-yard line, a quick look-in pass. It's intercepted there by Tom Garden. Garden's up to the 30, the 34-yard line, and this may be the beginning of the end of the Ohio State dynasty. What a tremendous football victory this will be for Michigan. And the Wolverines now, with 18 seconds, look at those coaches down there. They're jumping up and down like grammar school kids. This is the greatest thing that's happened as Don Moorhead, quarterback, sneaks the ball. The longest 14 seconds. Listen to the crowd in the background. 10, 9, 8, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. They got Schembechler on their shoulders. Listen to the crowd go wild. Michigan upsets Ohio State. Believe it or not, the final score. Ripley couldn't have made it any better than this. Michigan 24,
what has to be the upset of the century. In this centennial year of college football, what a ball game we have seen here today. And the jubilation and cheering and celebration will go on long into the night in old Ann Arbor town.
We talked about the emotional impact of this thing. I have never seen a football team so emotionally up for a game as Michigan was today.
By beating, now Jim, we're talking about you've got to get the picture completely. Beating what many people said was the greatest collegiate football team of all time. Now we're talking all time. That's what they said. That the only team that could possibly give them a game at that time was the Minnesota Vikings. And apparently they must have been the hot shots in the NFL at that time.
But they beat the greatest team that ever stepped on a college football field. I don't think there's any question what our 69 team, and I don't say that with bias, we were so far ahead in the national polls when we went up there that wasn't even close.
This was a special game. This wasn't just an ordinary game. This was a magnificent upset. And I think if you want to put it in perspective, you would have to read a letter that Fritz Greisler wrote me as he watched the game from his hospital bed, and how proud he was that he was Michigan, and that how Michigan stood out that day, and once again expressed their dominance in college football. That established my program here and was one of the greatest victories in the history of Michigan football. Woody said, you know, people have asked me, what was the greatest football team I ever had here at Ohio State? He says, you know, men, that 1969 team, I don't think there's any team that could match that. And he looked at me and he said, damn you, Bo. You will never win a bigger game than that. And he was right.